So this is my collection of Kreg products. I have the Kreg Foreman, the Kreg Automax, the K4 pocket hole jig, the rip cut. I also have this multi-measure type device, and most of these are just components that go to the pocket hole system, but I also have a shelf pin jig, and I have a new shelf pin jig here because the accessories that came with this, I'm not quite sure where they are for this one here. I misplaced them. And then I have the actual concealed hinge jig, which I haven't done this yet, so I'm looking forward to giving this a shot and seeing how that works out. I see people on YouTube doing it with ease, and so I want to try to expand my skills in that way. The rip cut, now I learned about this. I probably owned this for I want to say 7 years or so, and this is where I really started to get into more precision work, because before I would just kind of use a tape measure and try to cut, and I was wondering why my projects were coming out not square or just off, and I didn't really understand about making everything exactly the same, and the variation where if you measure say 16 inches the first time, you may mark on the left of the tick mark for 16, and then the next time you go to measure the next piece, you may measure on the right side of the tick mark just from human error. And I ended up watching a YouTuber, or maybe I have read it in a book, where basically, they basically communicated that if you were making a table and you just want all the legs to be the same, they may not be exactly at 36 inches or 32 inches, but if they're exactly the same, then you're going to have a visually pleasing end result. Whereas what I was doing, I was cutting things and even taking like a piece of 2x4 and laying it on top of the other one and scribing the mark, and then cutting on that line and not taking into account the blade curve, and ending up with 2, 3, or 4 pieces that were all of different lengths. That's where all of these systems come in, and as I've been using these types of systems, the jigs and the MFT table and all of these things, it's helping me to understand more about how to get precision. I'm not there yet, I don't have the full understanding, but I'm getting it through experience. I don't have a teacher to come in and teach me these things. I mean, I took a woodworking class in high school, and that was many years ago. That's almost 30 years ago. And so, I kind of wish I would have got into this hobby earlier, but I didn't. I'm into it now, and I've moved on from other things that I used to do extensively. I mean, 20 years ago, I was playing video games, and not to say that I never do that at this point in time, but I don't do it to the extent that I did back then, because I have children and I want them to see me doing something that's productive, constructive, and there's things that I need to do. So these, tools that I've purchased, from Kreg, are my understanding of these tools is that they're helps to help you get a more professional result through the help of these tools, or these jigs, if you will. The shelf pin guide gives you the ability to put adjustable shelves inside of a cabinet, and I understand the concept of how it works. I haven't used it yet, as I said. The drill bit, I misplaced it, and really all the rest of the kit to it I've misplaced somewhere. So as I said, I purchased another whole set, and I'll be using that here coming up soon. What I understand as far as in construction and the types of things that I've done, you can build something with a 2x4 frame, which is going to make it heavy. Like, I guess in the past I used to think, you make the skeleton and then you put the skin on top of the skeleton. So like, you make the skeleton out of 2x4s or something more rigid, and then you would just tack on wood on the outside, and I mean that would make something incredibly heavy, and it can be kind of quite wasteful to build like that. And then so that's when you come in to learn about like 3/4 inch plywood and being able to butt those pieces together to make boxes and to make to make other things, whether it be bed frames, whether it be bookshelves, anything like that. Now, my focus right now on shop furniture is because it doesn't have to be pretty. It's more utilitarian, it's more functional, so that's where my focus is, so that I can, and I get used to my tools and I understand how they perform and what they do and what not to do, what to do with those tools. That is going to help me to kind of, build out my skill set. And as you can see with, some of the projects that I made, like I remember when I first made this MFT table, I was kind of shocked that I completed it, that I made it. It's put together with pocket hole screws, and I actually took the concept of the Ron Paulk bench. I actually was going to buy his plans to build this table, but I noticed that the openings that he had on his table were a lot narrower than the openings that I wanted, because I wanted to be able to cut and then take my track saw and set it right underneath, out of the way. That just made sense to me as far as a functional process. Going back to the Kreg tools, this, as I said, was useful. I actually used to use it with this circular saw here. I had it actually attached to this base. It actually, it has little screws here, and you would attach it to the actual plate of the saw here, and it kind of gets zeroed off of your saw, and it helped me to make decent cuts. But I did notice that if you kind of you're going along the side of a wood, because this section here rides along the side of your wood, if there's any kind of divots or any kind of imperfections, it will cause this to kind of be less accurate. I talk a lot about track saws. This right here is what led me to getting a track saw, because this does rips, but it doesn't do cross cuts. And so there is actually, I think the other product is called an AccuCut, if I'm not mistaken, and it's got a similar base plate. Actually, I think this base plate may fit on the AccuCut. I don't swear by that, but basically it's a similar thing where you have a plastic plate, you put the saw in it, and it gives you the ability to actually cut across a piece of wood. And so I looked into that. I read a lot of the reviews. They were mixed, and somewhere in those comments is where I ended up learning about track saws, and that's how I went down that journey. And now you already know where I'm at. We don't need to go there. But these kind of tools, help me to kind of make things more square, make things more aesthetically pleasing. I'm still not where I want to be, but I feel like I'm tackling a big situation, because there's so many elements to this woodworking thing. You've got carving, you've got wood turning, you've got carpentry, you've got fine furniture making, all of these different elements to dealing with wood, and I'm not even 100% sure which direction I'm going. I'm just dabbling a little bit in every area, because as far as being in the house, sometimes you may need to repair something, and that may require some form of carpentry skills. If you're replacing a door, more like a carpenter, or if you're doing some trim, more like a carpenter. But then if you decide that you want to build a chair or maybe a sofa or construct some kind of a wooden chest or a bookcase, well then you're kind of getting into furniture making, which is different than obviously just basic carpentry. And then obviously you have framers, which is another thing. And so as I'm tackling this hobby of woodworking, I realized that it's just so dynamic. And you know, I feel like these tools, just this limited amount of tools here, kind of show you, you know, how dynamic, you know, this whole process is. Because in theory, if you were like, say, putting panels up on a house, and say you put up the plywood, and say because of the way the measurements were done, you needed to put in a strip of plywood, you could use a tool like this to get that strip. And you know, if you know, obviously we already know if you're constructing, you know, box carcasses for beds, or actually beds or cabinets, or actual bookcases, then you know that's where these pocket holes will really shine. And then once you kind of graduate on from that, you're like, you know what, I don't want all of my cabinets to be open where I can see what's inside. Then you want to start making, or maybe you want to put different sizes of things in the cabinets. And so then that leads you down the path of getting something like this. Now, obviously, if I knew an experienced carpenter, an experienced woodworker, they would probably teach me a technique or a skill to do this, do what I paid this to show me to do. They would teach me how to do that, and I would do it without these kinds of jigs and accessories. But as I'm trying to learn myself, and also I'm trying to learn, you know, I'm trying to develop these skills in a short span of time. Not to be great, because I know that takes time, but more so to get up and running, to be, you know, when you start something in the beginning, you can become intimidated and put off by it because of failure. But when you kind of buy, you know, adjuncts like these to bolster your confidence and kind of push you forward, because it made it just a little bit easier to do the job, then you know you develop that confidence, and then you may end up working backwards to where next thing you know, at first you start off with this, and then next thing you know, you're building bench tops that have absolutely no metal fasteners in them, because you've grown, and now you're using hand planes, you're using, you know, Japanese saws and all of these different things to, you know, making mortises and tenons by hand, dovetails by hand. You know, these are all things that, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I would be interested in, but I think my journey in learning these things is I'm kind of coming from the outside in. And so, you know, rather than starting with, say, what do you call it, mortise and tenon joinery, or, you know, maybe even lap joints and, you know, dados and all of these things that are a little bit beyond my skill set. I can do them. I can actually do them. I just can't do it well. And so it's hard for me to imagine myself going to the store, buying a bunch of wood, and we know wood is expensive right now, and like say just practicing doing laps, you know, for a lap joint, or practicing doing dados, and just basically destroying wood. And you know, say you do that, or I'm just speaking for myself now, say I start to do that, and then my confidence goes down. Whereas on the back end, what I can do is I can get a pocket hole jig, I can get a Kreg Foreman pocket hole, and I can use a hinge, a concealed hinge jig, and a shelf pin jig, put all this stuff together, make a simple box, you know, and construct it and build it and put a door on it, and then feel like, okay, yes, I did that. And then that builds that confidence up, and it helps me, I'm talking for myself, to not feel like it's futile. Because sometimes, you know, like perfect example, I'll pull in, you know, like me trying to do these videos now. I actually signed up for the Adobe Cloud Suite probably back in 2017, and I know I paid for that suite which is pretty expensive, for like 3 years or so, and I never produced a single video. I always said I'll get around to it, but when I would go into the application, I would be fumbling around, and I was unable to get what I needed out of it. When I would sit down, I would try to watch YouTube videos, I would try to do all these different things, and I just wasn't getting it at that season. And so finally I did away with the Adobe, right? And that's kind of, using that example, that's kind of what I mean by, if I came into this woodworking thing with, you know, just hand tools and all of these things, trying to make things when I don't even understand the concept of what I'm doing. Whereas if I learn how to use a power tool, right? If I know I'm making a cabinet and it's going to be, you know, 12 inches deep, right? I can take this, I know inches and whatever, I can move this, put my saw in here, move this over here to 12 inches, lock it down, follow the direction, put it up against a piece of wood, cut my piece, and then I can say, okay, I'll cut a side, you know, for this bookcase or whatever, and then all I have to do is cut my lengths, and then I'm like, okay, well now how do I join them together? I mean, yeah, you can put a screw through the end, butt joint, but then, you know, as I've come to learn, when you put a screw into end grain, it's not the strongest thing. And then, you know, and I haven't even begun to explore wood glue. I've used it on a couple of occasions, but because I'm in that learning stage, I like to put things together and then take them apart. Put them together and take them apart so I can understand. You know, that's my goal, is to really dig deep down. Now, I know someone else, like someone that was more experienced in woodworking, they could just tell me. They could just give me everything I need and just lay it out there and show me step by step. Not everybody has that. Now, and you can pay for it. You can pay for that training. But this is the key, at least for me. I can't speak for someone else, but for me, after I pay for that training, I still gotta pay for the tools. So why not pay for the tools, maybe watch a few YouTube videos, play with the tools, you know, be as safe as you possibly can so you don't kill yourself or cut off any digits, but practice. And over time, you'll learn how to do something. And the satisfaction, you know, of me just watching a few videos and constructing this MFT table, constructing little, you know, shop furniture and different things. I mean, I have some pictures of some things that I made many years ago that I ain't even gonna lie, I would be embarrassed to show. And I was proud of those things. I made this corner cabinet one time that it was a weird little area behind a door. And I was like, oh, that's a perfect place to store things. So I went and got some of those, I think it's 1 by ½ inch. Let me see if I got a piece. I went and bought a bunch of these little pieces of wood here, right? And in strips, like 8-foot strips. And I built a frame out of it, just with like butt joints and so on and so forth. And, you know, for this particular cabinet, it was like a triangular cabinet in the corner. Now, I didn't have a door on it or anything because I didn't have any idea about how to do doors or anything like that, which I still don't, but I have a better idea now. And so I made this triangular cabinet, and the shelves, I used 1/8 inch plywood as the shelves. Now, I mean, obviously you couldn't put any weight on it, but I built that little thing with my old Milwaukee kit, and I was super proud of myself. And like I said, I am embarrassed to show that photo of when I did that project, but you know, those were learning stages. Now, I went on to build a nice, sturdy shelf made out of 2x4s and what was it called? Not MDF, the chipped wood. What is it called? Not particle board. I'm losing my train of thought on that, but it's the pieces of wood that's actually made up of chips of wood. As you see, not fully versed in this whole thing, so I don't ever want to give the impression that I know what I'm doing or I know whatever. I just happen to be a little bit more aged, and typically as you get older, your salary goes up if you work a job. So you have a little bit more disposable income when you're older than when you're younger. And rather than have hobbies that don't really generate or produce anything, I decided to take on this hobby, which is woodworking. Before it was, one of those things was playing video games. I mean, at one point in time, back in when I first started, well, I hadn't started YouTube. It took forever for me to actually get on YouTube. But initially I thought I was going to do a whole VR channel. I went out and I purchased all kinds of headsets. I got a bunch of them up there. They're in a tub right now. And I will probably put some of that stuff on this channel as well. This is Daddy Share Space. It's about sharing. It's about learning. It's about growing. Because, to me, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not asking you to adopt any philosophies or believe what I'm saying, but I feel like everything's kind of connected. And just going back to, say, my VR headsets and, incorporating all of this, you go get a computer, you get your little VR headset or your gaming system, your VR headset, and then you've got this headset, which is delicate, and it's got these cords and wires and all these things that go with it. And it's like you either throw it in a tub or you jam it in a media cabinet that you bought off the shelf that was constructed for a TV, a VCR, or, I'm now dating myself, a DVD player, a media streaming box, or a sound bar. It wasn't built from scratch to house VR headsets. And so you see that as a completely different genre of things. So for myself, I remember when I had my VR headsets, I was like, how can I display these? How can I have these VR headsets out where I can grab it and readily use it and enjoy it, but then put it away, and if someone comes to my house doesn't look like a rat's nest because there's cords and wires everywhere. So you start to think, well, I need a solution for that. And you go online or you go in the store and you see these generic cookie cutter products that it's like you might as well just go buy a big cardboard box and throw everything in it. Whereas if you took the time, bought you some tools, develop some skills, this is like a foundational level here. Learning how to use these types of jigs, it'll help you to put things together. And then once you're putting things together, then you can get to that stage where you can be more creative and start to create original design things. That's where my brain was looking at these types of things. My brain was at the point where it's thinking about all of these amazing things I can do, but I didn't have the skill. It's like, metaphorically speaking, it's like if you was on land and you saw a beautiful island just out of reach, and you're like, if I could just cross this water to get there, then I can be on that island and I can enjoy that island. But if you don't know how to swim, if you don't own a boat, if you don't know how to drive a boat, if you don't, if all these things that you don't know how to do prevent you from being able to get to your destination. And as I've become older, and I would hope just a little bit wiser, I've decided I want to do things that get me to a destination. So woodworking is not for me a situation where it's like, oh, I want to be the next best woodworker. That's not my desire. My desire is to do the best that I can do, but I have my own creative ideas that I need to learn fundamental woodworking skills, fundamental skills in every aspect so that I can bring these ideas to fruition, because I'm not even articulate enough to explain these ideas to someone else. And even if I could explain these ideas to someone else, all that would happen, because they have the skills, they're going to charge me an arm and 8 legs. So I go to my regular job, get the bag, to give the bag to someone else, while I sit there and do nothing with myself. And they go and they generate income for themselves, which is fine, no problem. But the key is, why not me? Why can't I learn how to hang a door? You know, how much money would it cost me to pay somebody to hang a door that's not a friend or relative or something like that, versus me actually learning to hang a door? It may not look as good as the professional, but you want to know what? I only spend the money that I need to do the job. And I may spend even more than I would pay the professional, because I don't know what I'm doing. But you know what? When I pay that professional and I get the result that I'm looking for, which is fine, but I've learned nothing. I've put nothing in my head. And the next time I have that problem, I got to go back to the professional. Whereas on the other hand, if I see the problem, I look at the problem, I study the problem, and I find the tools to help me to solve the problem, then I can move on and do other things, right? You know, it's kind of like I'm able to just continually grow. I'll give you an example that has nothing to do with woodworking, but maybe it'll kind of get my point across. I owned a 95 Mazda Miata, and I broke the key off in the ignition. And I called a locksmith to come to fix it. And he came, and he was a nice guy. He let me look over his shoulder. So I'm looking over his shoulder, just watching him work with this key and lock situation. And he was unable to fix it, right? But I still had to pay him. But by watching him, just looking over his shoulder, which I'm forever grateful for, being able to watch him, it just clicked to me how it worked. Because his mindset, when he was talking to me and doing whatever, he was saying, well, you know, this is a Mazda Miata, it's a 2-door car, right? And cars come with 1 key. They don't have 3, 4, 5 keys of different cuts, you know, different types of keys. And so his solution was, well, you just put a new key in there, you know what I'm saying? You know, get the ignition rekeyed, so you'll have a key for the ignition and then a key for the trunk and the doors. That didn't seem elegant to me. So what did I do? I said, okay, thanks. Paid him his money. And then I went to the junkyard. I found a 95 Mazda Miata. I took the ignition out. And then I took that ignition, and I remember I drilled it out, or drilled something. I opened it up. I can't remember exactly what I did, because this was about 10 years ago. I took the cylinder out, right? And so I'm examining the cylinder, and there was nothing wrong with the cylinder on the old car, right? I just had to take it out, get that piece of broken key out of there, and then I took that cylinder and I put it in that new setup, that new ignition, and I totally fixed it. And I was able to use the same key when I finally sold that car, I don't know, years later. Now, I paid a professional. I gave him money. And in the end, I did not get the results I was looking for. But then, looking over his shoulder, acquiring the knowledge, which would be kind of like watching YouTube, I was able to take what he left me with, work with it, and actually get the results that I wanted. Another example on that same car. Prior to me actually getting the key fixed, because I knew I broke the key off in the ignition, the car was basically dead to me without it getting repaired. But I didn't stop there. I ended up, and I wish I was doing YouTube back then, because I could actually show you these things that I actually did. But what I ended up doing, and this was a manual transmission Miata. I actually hot wired the car. And I hot wired it, and then I wired it up, and I actually had a 3-button switch where I had one switch that would turn on the power to the car. The other switch would turn on, like, say, the car radio separate, because, you know, all of that was actually in the key. You know, you turn it to the forward position, and you actually have the you know, you got the air conditioning that comes on and the car radio that comes on. So I actually rewired the car to where that part was one switch, the other part was another switch, and then I had a push button. And all I would do is I would hold down the clutch and I'd push that button and it started the car. And I actually took a piece of plastic, because you know how back in the day I used to put in car radios and take out car radios and all of that. So I learned to take a piece of plastic and I fabricated it to fit the area where, like, the car radio, right below the car radio. And I know somewhere on one of my computers I have a picture of it, but I'm not sure if I can find it because I'm not that organized with that type of stuff. But it had a 3-button, and the button in the center, you pushed it and it would start the car. And I drove that car for a while like that. I actually had a kill switch that when I bought the car originally, it had a kill switch where you could actually take this little dongle out, so that even if you had the key, you couldn't start it. So when I turned it into push button ignition, that means anybody could have came and just basically started the car. But because it had that kill switch, I would just take that kill switch out, and that was like the key, right? But I was pretty proud of myself that I actually was able to do that, you know, to actually fix that in that way. This car, that Miata, I did so many things with that Miata. I did things before too, but I did so many things with that Miata because I remember when I first bought the Miata, it actually had a cloth. It had a vinyl top with the plastic back window, and I decided I wanted to upgrade it. So I went on to I think it's gomiata.com. I used to frequent that site when I had my Miata, and I actually took that convertible top off myself and installed a premium cloth top with the glass back window. I did it myself, you know, and over time, you know, I had little fender benders in that car, and I did all my oil changes, all my tune-ups on that car. That car was running like a top when I eventually sold it. But that same car, it was a manual, you know, roll-up window. I went to the salvage yard. I found a Miata just like that, and I found a Miata that had power windows from the factory, and I took that equipment out and I put it in my Miata and upgraded it to roll up or to power windows. These are things that if I would have paid a professional for, you know, it would have been, you know, quite pricey. And, you know, I do those things for myself. And this woodworking is an example. It's just another avenue of doing things for myself. It keeps me constructive, it keeps me productive, it keeps me out of trouble, and it also gives me some focus. I have kids, I have daughters, and I told them many years ago that I was going to make them a dollhouse. And I started off down that journey, but I didn't have all these tools that I have now, and I, you know, was getting frustrated because I couldn't create the quality that I wanted to make for them. You know, understanding about finishes and the types of wood, and you know, you don't want to make your kids something and they're getting splinters all over themselves, or it just looks really, you know, trashy. You want to do a really good job. But I recognized that my skills were not there. You know, I could have just went to the store and bought them a plastic one, but then, you know, it gets broke, it's thrown in the trash, whatever. How much better would it feel if I actually built them a dollhouse with my own hands and gave it to them? And further still, you know, as I said, these are entry-level tools. As I learn and I put that information in my brain, I can teach them. what I do for a living, what I went to college for, I can't stick my hand in my pocket and give that to my kids. But whatever skills I develop myself, I can give it to them freely. I can give them a better start than I had by staying diligent and vigilant and avoiding things that are unnecessary and focusing on things that actually develop skills, that develop new abilities. And so that's kind of like, that's what, for me, this whole Daddy Share Space thing, that's what it is. It's, me sharing what I've learned through my hard work. It's not just woodworking. It's not just working on cars. Anything that I can do, I try to do it myself as much as possible. I've built my own PCs. I actually had a Surface Pro 4. The battery swole up in it. I actually bought a kit from iFixit.com. I got the one for the people that do those repairs. I bought the kit. I spent the money. It was probably $200 or $300. I bought the kit. And I took that Surface Pro 4 apart. And I replaced the battery. And while I replaced the battery, it was a 256 gigabyte model. I replaced it with a 1 terabyte SSD. And when I put it back together, I messed up the screen because I used too much heat. And at first I was going to leave it, but I ordered another screen, and I put that screen in there. And I want to say that I think I bought 2 extra screens because I think I messed up the second one too. And even with the third one, the touch doesn't work in the center of the screen, but on the sides it does. I don't know what I did wrong. But you can put the tablet on it, the Surface. It has the keyboard, the attachable keyboard. You put that on there, it works just like a desktop. I may not have regained the full touch screen functionality, but before I repaired it, it was basically a paperweight. The battery was swollen to where the screen was separated from the body. And because I was willing to tackle that job, my daughter's able to use that computer. Maybe not the full touchscreen functionality, but a long time ago I paid like $1,200 for that computer. It would be in a landfill right now. Whereas right now it's being used for homeschooling and maybe a little bit of game playing or whatever. It could be, it has use because of the effort that I put into it. And even though I spent that money, and maybe more money than I needed to fix it, that kit, that iFixit kit, I've replaced batteries on phones, I've replaced screens on phones. I'm not afraid to take really anything apart to try to repair it. So as you kind of get the feel, this, me buying a new camera so that I can grow in this whole video making, photography, because everything I learn, I can give to my children. And I am hungry to learn. I'm hungry to grow, to be the very best person that I can be, to develop in whatever way I can. These are just tools. No pun intended. And I'm going to invest in tools to invest in myself. This is not to show off or to try to be whatever. I mean, let's go through it. I bought the 12-volt system of drills because I noticed something as I'm getting older. Using these old 18 volts all the time, number one, it is fatiguing. That's for one. So these are not required. These heavy-duty 18 volt tools are not required for every task. You don't need this to put in an outlet, to screw an outlet cover on. You don't need this level tool to put 2 pieces of plywood together. But I didn't know that. I'm using these tools and ruining, plywood and whatever because they're too powerful for certain things or whatever. And now I know that you have the chuck setting, so, but definitely with the impact, You know, I mean, obviously you can learn to be more diligent and more, you know, skillful in these things. That's true, no doubt. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, it's just the different things. Right here, I've got a laser level. I bought that because I was hanging shelves in my wife's office. And then you start to understand, you know, leveling things. And it's difficult to get up there on the wall and you're holding the level and you're trying to do all these different things, all these balancing acts. That's why professionals buy professional tools. It's not because it makes the job harder, it's because it makes the job easier. All of this stuff here can be done without these tools. Whatever these tools do, you can do it without them. But as a novice, as a rookie, you may feel like it's a waste of money to buy a professional level tool for me, Joe Blow, to do the job. I disagree. I disagree. Because as I was saying in my Ryobi video, or maybe I did or didn't say, when you buy a Ryobi tool, and if you push it too hard and it fails, I'm saying if, I'm not saying it will, and you spend, let's say, $120 on a drill, and you do one job and it gets through it fine. But then all of a sudden, the wife comes to you, oh, can you do this? Can you fix that? Can you do this? Your buddy down the road said, hey, can you help me with my deck? And here you come with your tools. And all of a sudden, you've crossed over from DIY, one project a year or whatever, to this novice handyman. And all of a sudden that $120 drill goes up in smoke. And if you would have spent $200, or maybe even $200 and double the money, $240, you would have a tool that you can hand down to your kids. And they can use it because of the quality. Because if you buy, you know, DeWalt tools, DeWalt and Ryobi tools both have a 3-year warranty. However, DeWalt tools are constructed to work on the job site. Ryobi tools are constructed for the homeowner. The homeowner is not pushing tools typically as much as an actual contractor, whatever. But if you think about it from an investment standpoint, if you buy something cheap and it fails on you for one reason or the other, you think, oh, well, it was cheap. Well, go buy some cheap shoes. See how often you buy those cheap shoes because your feet hurting or this reason or that reason. And now all of a sudden, you end up spending more money than if you would have bought quality in the first place. But you have to learn these lessons. These are life lessons that you learn. So, as I said, when I'm showing tools, when I'm presenting things, it is not meant to be any form of, you know, no form of bragging, no form of showing off. I genuinely am looking at the utility of the tool. I bought the Festool not because, oh, I've got Festool. No, it's because when I looked at that, let's say the Festool MFT, that lift up fence, it's brilliant for what it does. The fence that bench dogs make is brilliant. You know, I can't argue with it. You know, I could have spent that money on some video games, and then at the end of playing the video games and eating a bag of chips and drinking a bunch of soda, what, I get diabetes and, you know, and have medical problems? Or I can take that money and now, or as my skills develop, if I have a friend or a co-worker or someone is like, oh, you know, I need a little bookshelf, but I couldn't find one or whatever, because, you know, let's look at homes. Homes are built all the time, but most of us don't have the money to make a home, to create our own home, to build our own home from scratch, to help it fit our way or what we like. And so you have to buy things that are generic, off the shelf, and make them fit, whether they fit or not. But when you acquire the skill to build stuff, you can make things custom and specific for your particular environment that look good, that have functionality, And that also, like I said, it keeps you productive. It keeps you stimulated in the mind. And these are things I'm passionate about. So I understand I pulled out a bunch of Kreg tools, and really this was kind of like just a stimulating talking point to get to the conversation that I'm having right now. And if you enjoy things like this, there will be builds, because I am going to be building stuff. You can come and see. You can check the channel out. You can see what you like and what you don't. You leave it, no problem. But I'm simply sharing what my experience is, why I'm buying these tools. I think it's important. It's important to me that you understand why I'm showing the tools, what I'm doing with the tools. I'm not buying tools and just having them sit here and not using them. I'm using all of my tools. Now there's certain things that I'm not using as of yet, because look, I bought this, I want to say I probably bought this 7-8 years ago, and somewhere I lost the directions, and somewhere I lost all the other components, and as a result I never used it. And even, obviously I could probably just take a drill bit, put it in here, and finagle it and figure it out. But it's not the same experience that if you buy it from the store and you follow the directions, you do what you need to do. But as I said, you buy something like this and then you don't have a proper place to store it, so you lose stuff, right? And as I was talking about in the pack out, not every solution that's made by a manufacturer is the perfect solution. Those contractor bags, they're so nice when they send them with all the tools. But I mean, who wants to have a pile of contractor bags laying around? That's not efficient. That's not effective. That's not useful. When you come out and you're like, oh, I have this job. I have, I need to paint this wall, or, I need to fix this bed or fix this bicycle. You don't want to be rummaging through bags or taking pack outs apart. What you want to do, you want to have a nice situation, right, where you have your tools organized, where you can go to them, decreasing your anxiety, go get what you need, pull it in, and go do what you need to do and put it away. Everything needs to be put in its place, and everything needs to have a place, so that you can keep this up here clear, so that you can do other things in life. And so many times when I'm out here working in the shop, put the drill down, can't find the drill. Put the tape measure down, can't find the tape measure. That's why I got all these tape measures. I probably got about 6 of these box knives. Not because, I'm just collecting. Hell, I put one down, I can't find it for weeks. So in my mind, as I'm trying to learn woodworking, which is a whole nother dimension, I'm like, I need to get some better organizational skills so that I can be more productive. As I say all the time, when I come out here in the shop, I want to build stuff. I want to make stuff. If this wasn't a work week, I would have came out here and I'd have been cutting and sawing and doing whatever. But there's other tasks that I have to do in life as well, which is go to work, come home, maybe have to pick things up from the store, need to be mindful of the neighbors, can't be cutting all throughout the night. These are things, you want to be mindful of other people. And so I've decided to do what I'm doing now. Just turn on the camera, maybe show you some tools, talk to you about, why I bought them, what I use them for, and then also share, like, yeah, this was trash. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have bought this. So if those are things that you're interested in, then, you're welcome to tune in anytime you see something that piques your interest. But understand, we all have an opportunity to help another person, to share with other people. And that is kind of like what I'm trying to present here on this platform of YouTube through the title of Daddy Share Space. It's just sharing. I am a daddy, I am a father of children. I have a wife. And as a result, the things that I learned, I am trying to share those with other people, because the information that I've acquired over the years, if someone had shared that with me 20 years ago, I can't imagine where I would be. I can't even imagine it. All of the dead end paths that I've gone down, if there's younger people that happen to see this video, you can learn from someone that has made mistakes and have a more direct path to success for yourself. And success for you is success for people around you, whether they're people you like or don't like. Because if you're successful and you're happy and you're doing what you need to do, then you're not worried about what somebody else is doing. That unhappiness that we have, that we carry around, is what kind of gets you to minding other people's business and getting involved in nonsense that you shouldn't be getting involved in. Let's stay productive. Let's be constructive. Let's do positive things. If you got a car, learn to work on your car so that you can keep it on the road so you can save your money. If you got a place to live, learn how to do constructive and productive things in your home so that you can bring value to other people's lives. So that you can do something constructive and really to just generate and build up your own self-worth. Anyways, entire ramble. For those that are offended or don't like this type of thing, apologize in advance. A person can only be themselves. And to anyone that does enjoy the content that I am producing, I hope to get better. Every video is not going to be this, as I said. There's going to be build videos. I have a bunch of footage on a table saw project that I have been working on for a little while, and I'm very excited about it. And I hope to get that to you. Maybe I'll get it done this weekend. I don't know, because I'm still learning. I'm actually editing in Final Cut Pro sometimes and in DaVinci Resolve sometimes, and my footage is going back and forth between a Mac and a PC because I'm trying to figure out which software that I like the best and kind of roll with that. And yeah, as I get better, you'll see better. And that's my goal, is to stay productive and constructive and move forward. And whatever I share, obviously I'm sharing it with my wife and children, and hopefully this is my avenue, my ability, my way of being able to share with anyone out there in the world, things that I've personally experienced. I'm not a teacher. I'm no authority on anything, but you don't have to be. If you learn some simple principle that can help the person, that can help people around you, you should share it. Why wouldn't you? Because if you was the person that was in the dark, you would want somebody to share with you. But I'm going to leave on that note. Take care.